Yeah, I'm bringing closer. Good evening, and once again I want to welcome you to another program of Issues in the News. As you are aware, we have had some very technical difficulties tonight, and we are improvising because we want to bring this program to you live, and we are now using another instrument, so you may see a different background and you may hear me differently, but at least we are live, and I want to thank you very much for the patience that you have displayed this evening. It shows how much you are interested in this program, and I felt compelled to transmit to you and to speak to you, notwithstanding the several difficulties that we have had this evening. So once again, I want to thank you for being with me, and I want to get the program up and rolling. So thank you, and it shows that we can improvise and we can get the program going despite the difficulties that we are engaging. So I may not be able to interact the way that I have done over the past few weeks or months or years rather, but at least I'm speaking to you, and I want to again reiterate my deepest gratitude for your patience and for your tolerance. So the first item that I want to deal with tonight is to inform you that our National Grade 6 students will be sitting their examinations tomorrow and Thursday, and I want to take this opportunity on behalf of Issues in the News to wish them all success, and to wish their parents all success as well, and to congratulate our students for preparing for these exams in very adverse circumstances. We still have some elements of COVID with us, but the preparation for these exams would have been done in rather difficult circumstances. Parents would have been required to make tremendous sacrifices, and teachers, of course, would have also been called upon to make tremendous sacrifices, including jeopardizing their own health in coming out to teach our students. And tomorrow and Thursday, our students will be going to write the grade 6 examinations. So I wish them all the best, and I hope everything goes well. The other important issue that I want to deal with is some statements I see published in the newspapers made by Senior Counsel Roysdale Ford, Member of Parliament for the opposition. Mr. Ford, first of all, is accusing our government of constantly violating the Constitution. I reject that contention. Our government complies with the Constitution, and whenever we cannot comply with the Constitution, we make that public and we invoke the relevant doctrines that are available. For example, the doctrines of necessity, when we are forced not to comply with the strict provisions of the Constitution because of the absence of certain things that make compliance impossible. So if we don't have a leader of the opposition in place, and we are required to consult the leader of the opposition, then we cannot comply with the Constitution. And the doctrine of necessity avails us the opportunity to comply with the Constitution, and then subsequently seek compliance when the particular situation rectifies itself. So when the leader of the opposition was actually appointed, we proceeded and we began a process of consultation. But Mr. Ford continues to make these reckless allegations. And I should point out as well, since I am on the topic, that it is Mr. Ford's government, when it was in office, APNU, AFC, who has had a legion of non-compliance with the Constitution. We have multiple decisions of the court condemning the APNU, AFC government for their unconstitutional actions. And I have highlighted those decisions and those incidents of unconstitutionality on many, many occasions on this show, and I don't think that it is necessary for me to do that again. Importantly, during the 5 months period ensuing the elections, we saw the rampant illegalities and unconstitutionalities being attempted to be perpetrated. And Mr. Ford led the group of lawyers, or was part of the group of lawyers, who failed abysmally and repeatedly in the courts as they tried to get the courts to justify and legalize their unconstitutionality. Those are matters that are still fresh in the people's minds in this country and indeed across the Caribbean and across the globe. So I don't think anybody takes Mr. Ford seriously, but I think I need to remind persons of Mr. Ford's pronouncements, since he now seems to be the mouthpiece of the APNU AFC. Even after the election results were declared and our government was sworn in, I recall Mr. Ford filing 2 elections petitions, and when they were filed, I recall him holding a press conference in front of the High Court in which he said that by virtue of his 2 petitions, within 6 months, our government will be thrown out of office by virtue of those 2 petitions. As it turned out, within 6 months, the 2 petitions were dismissed. And 2.5 years after, we are still in government. So Mr. Ford filed the 2 most important cases perhaps in his life and in the opposition legal repertoire. And both were dismissed within 6 months. And it is not that they were dismissed on their merits. They did not even reach the stage of merits. For example, one was dismissed for non-service. Mr. Ford and his team of lawyers couldn't even serve the petition properly and in accordance with the law. And upon whom did they default the service? They default service on Mr. David Granger, the leader of the opposition. They served Mr. Jagdeo, they served me, the Attorney General, they served GCOM, they served Lowenfield, but they couldn't serve their own leader. And as a result of that, the petition was dismissed. And this guy, Mr. Ford, is alleging that we are violating the Constitution, and he's also alleging incompetence on our part in terms of constitutional compliance, and also I am told that he's alleging incompetence in other areas. So I just wanted to put that there on the record to remind you of this track record. But more importantly, Mr. Ford's recent pronouncements, or his latest pronouncements, relates to the Police Service Commission. Mr. Ford is contending that the Police Service Commission is unlawfully constituted and therefore cannot act because of this unlawful constitution or composition. Mr. Ford piggybacks on an argument advanced by Assistant Commissioner Clinton Conway. Clinton Conway argued in the newspapers in a letter that the Police Service Commission consists of 5 members and 4 have been appointed out of the 5, and therefore there is no Police Service Commission. Now, I would understand if Mr. Conway says that. Mr. Conway is not a lawyer, so he would not appreciate the intricacies of our Constitution. But I am shocked, but I should not be, that Mr. Ford adopts that argument and runs with it and reiterates it in the newspapers today. That because we have a 5-member commission and 4 members are appointed, that the commission is not properly constituted and therefore cannot act. A deeply flawed argument, and an argument that should not come from a lawyer. Now let me say to you that the Constitution of our country provides very clearly that there shall be a Police Service Commission, and that is established in one article in the Constitution. Then in another article, a different article, our Constitution speaks to how the Police Service Commission is to be constituted, meaning how it is to be populated. So that article says that there are 5 members, 4 of whom shall come from the National Assembly, and one of those 4 shall be appointed the chairman by the President after the President would have consulted with the Leader of the Opposition. And the 5th member of that commission shall be the chairman of the Public Service Commission. It is no secret that we don't yet have a Public Service Commission. So we have a commission, a Police Service Commission, that has 4 members, excepting the chairman of the Police Service Commission. Now, I will concede, and we never argued otherwise, that the Police Service Commission is not fully constituted because it has 4 of the 5 members required by the Constitution. But to argue that the 5 members not being appointed and that renders the Commission incompetent to act is a completely incoherent argument. Because what Mr. Ford and Conway are doing is that they are conflating and equating a commission that is not fully constituted with one that is not operational. They are 2 different concepts. Not because a body is not fully constituted, it means the body is not operationalized and it cannot act. Because each body has a quotient number by which once that quotient number exists, it can then act. The Police Service Commission is no different. Our Constitution specifically says that notwithstanding a vacancy existing in any of the service commissions, those service commissions, provided that there is a quorum and there is a stipulated quorum, then those commissions can act. The Constitution also says that notwithstanding a vacancy the commission can still act, and the actions or decisions of the commission will not be affected by that vacancy. Now, that is a standard principle of law that exists in constitutions across the world and in many corporate statutes. And it not only applies to our constitution, it applies to various other organs created in the constitution. Imagine if the drafters of the constitution were so naive to say that every time there is a vacancy in an office, then that office can't function. Or because of one vacancy, an entire body or commission cannot function. Then the Constitution would grind to a halt. The framers of the Constitution obviously recognize that because of different exigencies, you may not have a fully composed commission or body in every given case. And therefore they have made provisions to allow those bodies and those commissions to act notwithstanding there is the absence of a full complement of members. Apparently that simple principle eludes the likes of Mr. Ford and Mr. Conway. Every time the office of president is vacant because the president is absent from the country, the prime minister or any designated officer can act as the president. The cabinet comprises of 20-odd members. The Constitution also says that if there is any vacancy in a cabinet position, the cabinet can continue to act, notwithstanding the vacancy. And any decisions made would be valid, notwithstanding the vacancy. And I can go on to give you various other examples in the law where the fact that the body itself is not fully appointed or fully constituted, it does not affect its ability to carry out its functions. So I just want to put that on the record and to reject the argument that Mr. Ford and Mr. Conway are advancing about the Police Service Commission not being functional. It is not fully constituted, but it is functional. And we never said that it was fully constituted. So I just want to put those matters to rest as I continue with the program. So, as you are aware, the Police Complaints Authority concluded its investigations into the shooting of Quindon Bacchus and made its findings public, as well as it transmitted its report to the DPP for actions. The DPP has since advised the institution of a set of charges against 3 police officers who were implicated in the shooting based upon the investigation supervised by the Police Complaints Authority. It is already public that one of the police officers is charged with murder and 2 others are charged with two different offenses. I understand that they have been placed before the courts and they have been refused bail. We made it clear from the inception how the process was to unfold. And this is a process outlined by the law, that the police Complaints Authority must supervise the investigation because it implicates a police officer in wrongdoing. That is the law. We made it clear that the government or no other person can interfere with the Police Complaints Authority as it discharged its functions, and no one interfered. We asked for patience because we can't, as a government, direct the Police Complaints Authority when to do its work and how to do its work. The Police Complaints Authority discharged its mandate and transmitted the file to another constitutional office holder, the Director of Public Prosecutions. That constitutional office holder examined the matter and gave the relevant advice to the police, and the charges have been filed. That is the law taking its natural course. Now, we saw that while the legal process was taking place, there was mayhem, there was violence, there was robbery, there was looting, there was destruction of public and private property, there was arson, there was riotous conduct, there was violent outbursts, there was beating, and there was domestic terrorism taking place along the East Coast Public Road. Those incidents are being investigated by the law enforcement investigative arm of the state. And as I have said, when those investigations are concluded, charges are going to be filed and prosecuted in accordance with law. I have also stated that they were deliberate and multiple attempts to incite, to ensnare, and to encourage thousands of Guyanese, in particular of Afro-Guyanese descent, to join the illegality, the criminal violence, and the riotous and terroristic activities along the east coast of Demerara by those who were executing them. And as I've done before, I want to take this opportunity to salute those Afro-Guyanese and the other Guyanese who did not yield to those temptations. If you travel along the East Coast Public Road, you will still see the burning of the roads and burning of the highway at various villages. That was done to try to incite those villagers to bring them out on the road so that they can have a volcanic eruption of greater violence, greater robbery, and greater riotous conduct. A larger part of our population on the east coast of Demerara behaved maturely, behaved sensibly, did not yield to the incitement, and did not lend themselves to be manipulated by the race mongers, the hate mongers, the rioters, and those who were engineering and executing that violent procession and that violent melee which unfolded on the east coast of Demerara and culminated at Monrepo. And I want to once again salute all those Guyanese who exercised restraint and who did not fall prey and did not yield to the counseling and to the incitement and to the encouragement of those perpetrators and miscreants. Those whom the evidence implicate will be dealt with by the full force of the law. And we ask for patience. The investigations are ongoing. As if the destruction, the damage, the violence, the riotous conduct, and the terrorism which we all witnessed and which many people, hundreds of people endured, as if that was not enough, you had persons masquerading as leaders who were actively encouraging more to take place. Those persons who are doing so in the United States of America, on social media in Guyana, and who are also present and who even after the violence continued along this path to encourage more illegality and more criminality, those persons' conduct and utterances are also under review, not only by law enforcement agencies in Guyana, but also outside of Guyana. And they also will be dealt with by the full force of the law. Now, yesterday, some of these very persons who are styling themselves as leaders, some of them are parliamentarians, wanted to continue the mayhem on the east coast of Demerara. They wanted to continue the violent disturbances. They wanted to continue the division and the race-mongering along the east coast of Demerara. And they organized a day of protest to take place in Buxton. They advertised it publicly, and we know that they were in the villages along the east coast, mobilizing and trying to get more and more persons to come out on the road, hoping that there was going to be another combustion of volcanic violence. So persons like David Hines, you had the chief whip, what is his name, of the APNU, Christopher Jones. They have this fellow named Amsterdam. Sherrod Duncan is always on the scene, so he may have been there, but the three that I'm speaking about, I heard them myself. But I'll get to what they said a little later. The government decided to respond, and we organized in Buxton a 9-member ministerial outreach of our government, headed by Prime Minister Mark Phillips, who was the acting president. And this was done upon the direction of His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, the president, who was attending a CARICOM Heads of Government Summit in Suriname. So we decided to take the bull by the horn and go into the day of protest. Many persons said we shouldn't do that. They were warning us we may encourage and we may cause another confrontation, and we said no. We believe that the people of Buxton and surrounding communities will take a position against violence. They will take a position against racial division and racial hostilities. They will take a position against beating and looting and burning of the roads. They will take a position against confronting law enforcement agencies. And we further said that those people will take a position consistent with development, consistent with law and order. They will take positions that are for unity rather than disunity. That they will take positions that will advance their welfare as a people, that will advance the welfare of their communities, that will address their problems in the communities, rather than go and be part of an unruly and unlawful mob. And we were absolutely vindicated, because the people of Buxton and surrounding communities, Friendship, Vigilance, Melanie, came out in their hundreds and attended our community meeting at the Buxton Community Center, thereby demonstrating that they made a conscious but important choice, that they have disengaged themselves from the mob leaders who wanted them to go down a road that would obviously lead to perdition, to violence, to conflict with the law, to burning and looting. The people chose differently. And I want to take this opportunity to salute the law-abiding persons and people of Buxton, Friendship, Melanie, Vigilance, Thrasway, Annandale, and all those people who came out and attended our outreach. And also, even those who did not attend our outreach, I want to thank them and congratulate them for not lending themselves to the unruly mob that they were attempting to organize on the Buxton Public Road. Because their event was an abysmal failure. It was an abysmal failure. It goes to show significantly that Guyanese are mature, that Guyanese are sensible, that Guyanese are now looking at issues, and they will not be herded like cattle by leaders who preach race and race baiting, that they will not fall prey to racial incitement anymore. And once Guyanese start to behave in that manner, that is the end of the career of those politicians, because the career of those politicians are based upon the existence of a gullible, uneducated population whom they can exploit on racist and racial grounds. And what we saw demonstrated yesterday was that the people in those communities took the dignified, the edified, and the educated route. They did not lend themselves to be manipulated and used and abused by those politicians. As someone said, you would never see those very leaders who are putting other people's children in danger. You would never see their children being on the road. They would not bring their children to do what they are asking other children, other people's children to do. They will not expose their children and their family to the harm, to the dangers, to the violence that they are exposing other people to. You ever see any one of them, brother, sister, cousin, or child or children on the road? No. Their children are studying in university. Most likely they're not overseas. But they want other people's children, and they want other people's family to use as they persecute and prosecute an agenda that is so skewed that no one really understands what is their end game. So I listened with absolute shock to Mr. Christopher Jones, a person whom I have some regard for, and I listened to the level of racism to which he descended on camera. And if these guys are saying these things on camera, just imagine what they are saying when the camera is off. And here this guy is telling the people in Buxton and the youths in Buxton that they can't get jobs because they are black and they are Afro-Guyanese. They can't get a loan at the bank because they are Afro-Guyanese. They can't get contracts because they are Afro-Guyanese. And I can take you to tens of thousands of Indian Guyanese who also can't get loan at the bank, who also are not getting contracts, who also are not getting jobs. But they are fueling this fire. And David Hines, a supposedly educated man, is standing next to Christopher Jones as he's making these utterances. Christopher Jones was in office for 5 years. He had a very powerful position. He was the director of youth and sports. Name one single thing that he did for the Afro-Guyanese youths in Buxton to whom he was preaching. We fixed the ground. We put basketball hoops. We have done the roads. We have done community centers. We have dug the drains. We are working with the farmers in the backlands. All of that happening in Buxton since 2020. I'm not even going back before. Let Christopher Jones name one single project, one single initiative that he did for the youths of Buxton for the 5 years when he was in office. I used to go into Buxton. I shared kites in Buxton only the other day when it was Easter. I went to church in Buxton on Good Friday Day. I cleaned the streets of Buxton in my cleanup campaign a few months ago. Christopher Jones can never say that he did that for the youths of Buxton. And I'm only speaking about myself. What about my entire government? What can he say? But he goes there to misinform the youths of Buxton, to rile them up, to make them as racist as he is. And that is the dangerous thing that these guys are doing. David Hines has been speaking about black empowerment since Noah was a little boy. Let David Hines name one single policy, one single strategy, one single project of substance that he has ever done for the people of Buxton or for black people anywhere in this country. He is a member of the WPA. His party was in government for 5 years. What did the WPA did for Buxton for 5 years or did for any other Afro-Guyanese community for 5 years? Let David Hines answer that. What David Hines has ever done. But every time these guys open their mouth, it is about division, but putting hate into young people's mind, putting anger into their minds, telling them, imagine this guy is telling them that their roads are not being fixed because they are Afro-Guyanese. When the roads are in Enterprise are worse than the roads in Buxton. I walk all those communities. And that is why the people in Buxton were embracing me the way that they did. Let Christopher Jones go in another community. He can't go even in Buxton and get that kind of reception. Because of the divisive politics and hate that they spew every time they speak. Rather than speak, how would our government have any influence whether a man or a woman gets a loan at the bank? You tell me that. How can we influence whether a man or a woman gets a job in the private sector? But these guys are putting the poison in the minds of young people. Well, the law creates offenses in respect of racial hostilities in this country. Our constitution prohibits, and we have a racial hostility and discrimination of any type. And we have a Racial Hostilities Act in Guyana. And all those utterances are being reviewed. And then you have this, someone sent me a video of a man who appears to be a raging madman, Rickford Burke. I am convinced that this guy is not mentally sound. The way he looks, the way he speaks, everything about him looks as though he's not mentally sound. Something is wrong with him. He needs deep help. But quite apart from that, he did an entire video about me, that I should be sent back to India and Pakistan, and I don't know. Well, I am living in Guyana, Mr. Burke, and I don't plan to go anywhere else. If I were to migrate, I would have migrated a long time ago, my friend. You left Guyana and run, and you can't come back. I would love for you to come back. Come back. I am going to America. I have always traveled to the United States, and I'm going again later this month. You come to Guyana. He says that he's going to wait for me to come out of politics so that he can deal with me. Well, I don't know what to say to that. All I can tell you is that you don't have to wait on me to come out of government to deal with me. Come and deal with me now. I come to your country. I come there all the time. I'm coming there again this month. You deal with me. But I'm inviting you to come here, to my country. Please. But don't worry, you will get here. Don't worry. So, the point that I am making is that the opposition has reduced themselves to such an extent that they have nothing to which they can make reference to have a constructive dialogue anymore. They have deteriorated to the lowest ebb. The leader of the opposition, I heard him say that the PPP have let loose thugs on the East Coast to create the violence. Then I heard him say, and I would expect these deranged utterances to come from persons like Burke, because in my view, he is mentally anemic. But when the leader of the opposition can say that there was some attempt to protect Indian police officers in the Quindan Bacchus shooting inquiry, then I also have to question Mr. Norton's mental makeup. Because that goes beyond a demented, that goes beyond political rhetoric and propaganda. You have to have suffer from some mental deficiency to make that kind of statement and then still expect people to take you seriously. The investigation report of the Police Complaints Authority, I suppose, is a public document. It can be made public and it should be made public. All the officers who are implicated, charges are recommended. This guy now to spew the racial hate and to create further division, to preponderate the racial hostilities which have now become their diet. This guy manufactures now a story that there are 3 Indian officers implicated and who are being protected. I don't think any PNC leader would have descended solo. I don't think so. These are statements, as I said, that are being examined. They have to be examined by the law enforcement agencies. We cannot continue with, this is not irresponsible utterances anymore. This is incendiary and inflammatory utterances in a country where there are ethnic issues like Guyana. They can have combustive impacts, and Mr. Norton cannot be unaware of these implications. Mr. Christopher Jones cannot be unaware of these implications, and they must be held responsible. But whatever legal consequences flow from these utterances and this conduct to which I am making a reference, the litmus test must be the Guyanese people. And to the Guyanese people I am speaking. Are you going to support a political leader or a political leadership that espouses and advocates that degree of degradation, that degree of racism and hate-mongering and division in your country? You have to make up your mind. Because if tomorrow you decide as a people that you don't want that type of leadership and leaders, then that is the end of their careers. We have, as you must know, a very bright future in this country. And that future will be realized for every Guyanese who want to have a bright future. If you want to live a life of deprivation, degradation, if you want to live a life of violence, of racism, of racial animosity and hostility, well then, the rest of the country will part company with you. I don't know how far you will get and what fate will befall you. But I know that a majority of Guyanese would want to go in the progressive direction. And it is to that majority I am speaking. And I am saying to you that the survival of leaders of the cadre and caliber who want destruction in this country, who want race war in this country, who want hate in this country, who want violence in this country, their survival depends upon you. You could determine whether they will continue as politicians, or you will determine whether they exit public life. Because without you, the people, they have nothing. And they literally have nothing. They literally have nothing other than your support. And I ask you to do some degree of introspection. I ask you to do some degree of self-examination. We are going to continue this conversation. My operator is signaling to me that we have to go. I wanted to have this discussion, and that is why I went to the extreme of going very late, waiting a long time, and trying to get my technical difficulties fixed. I didn't get them fixed, but I still proceeded to speak. We are going to continue this conversation. I want to take this opportunity as I'm concluding to extend Eidul Adha greetings to my Muslim brothers and sisters in particular, but indeed to all Guyanese. This is a great festival. It's a festival of sacrifices. It's a festival of the expression of brotherly love. And I extend greetings to you. Please enjoy the rest of the week. And I will see you next Tuesday. And I promise that we're going to work the entire week to ensure that we have all the technical difficulties rectified, and I'm going to enhance my internet capabilities as well, so that what happened tonight does not reoccur. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the week.